Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
A 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here. Out of here. A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
Hey. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run. Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year for Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner. Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And welcome to another episode of the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lind. I am joined by my co-host, former Met, former Major League Baseball pitcher Bill Pulsifer. As we are entering this episode, it's a dozen, Bill. It is number 12. How are you doing, sir?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. We'd like to thank Stephen White, our producer behind the scenes, who takes care of everything that you don't see and we don't see. Please check out his website at roots-recordings.com and his podcast at Cold Popcast. So thank you, Steve, for everything that you do. And, Bill, here we are in the midst of the MLB playoffs. And I know you're more pumped than the average fan, as you said that weeks ago, and we are right at the end as the Texas Rangers have punched their ticket to the World Series, their first World Series appearance since 2011. And let's just go right into the Rangers for a second and get your thoughts and my thoughts on that series. Rangers were down 3-2 going into Houston, and they took both games. Not one team won a home game. Every away team won their games. Not one team got a victory. Props to the Astros. Props to the Rangers. And, Diamondbacks and Phillies. I'll be honest with everybody listening. There's no way around it. We're recording this before we know whether the Phillies or Diamondbacks in Game 7 will go. So we'll play along later as if they each win, if that works. But before we do that, Game 7 is always fun, and we're going to get two. First time since 2004 that both LCS went Game 7. So your thoughts on the Rangers and the ALCS with the Rangers prevailing?
Yeah, I think we had talked about it before, and I said that I felt like they needed to be punched in the mouth a little bit, and they did get punched in the mouth 3 days in a row, 3 games in a row. Obviously, crazy series with the home team not winning any of the games, but the Rangers showed some serious resiliency, and I felt like they were the team to beat. I don't like predicting baseball because it's so hard to do, and I was sweating a little bit there because I had said that I felt like the Rangers were going to go through. But great ball club, hitting on all cylinders, showed some great resiliency and some fight to come back from being on the brink. And you got to say that they're they got a chance, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, and they talked to Dusty Baker after the game about how crazy is it for, just the Astros not to win a home game. 4 games, 0-4 at home. He talked about how disappointing it is for the crowd and all that. But that's insane. And at my opinion, home field advantage in baseball is not that imperative, compared to other sports. But that's extreme. 0-7 in terms of home teams. So do you make anything of it, or is this just baseball such a strange game?
Yeah, I think it's just baseball's such a strange game that anything can happen. Like I said, that's why I have a hard time wanting to predict what's going to happen, because anything can happen, and this just proves that anything can happen. And then once you get to this time of the year, you got the best teams and the hottest teams. So surprising, yes. Surprising, no, because baseball's just baseball, and shit happens.
Yeah. With the Rangers, I put my foot in my mouth back when deGrom was signed over there and Scherzer was traded over there. As we keep it in Mets talk right now, when deGrom signed there and took more money and opted out of his contract, and they said, "Oh, the culture has changed in Texas." So the Rangers, who have punched their ticket, like we just talked before, and I'm going to keep it in Mets talk. deGrom signed there. I put my foot in my mouth. Scherzer was traded there, and they talked about how the culture was changed. And we all were like, the Rangers, because they had lost over 100 games in 2021. To be in the World Series 2 years later is insane. So here they are. Now, my question to you, we don't know if they're going to win the World Series or not, but they're there. They made it. And nobody remembers second place. No, Phillies are not happy about going to the World Series in 2022. They got swept by the Astros. You got to win it all. I've seen a lot of Met fans on Twitter and on various, radio stations and whatnot. And it's ridiculous to me about their thoughts. And I wanted to get your take, and I'll give you mine, about some of the fans would rather see the Phillies win than Scherzer or deGrom. And throw Travis Jankowski in there, because I just love the way he plays. He's on the Rangers too. He's a fourth outfielder. He's paid his dues.
He almost did a home run the other day.
He got robbed. That would have been good for him. I find it insane, and I keep using that word today. I don't know why. Maybe I'm going insane, but Scherzer and deGrom did not contribute to the Rangers at all. deGrom, not at all. He literally threw, I think it was like 30 innings. Tommy John out for a year and a half. Knowing how deGrom is and how competitive he is, he'd probably, if they won the World Series, big if, he would take that World Series ring and throw it in a drawer. Because his competitive nature is, well, thank you for the share of, the money of the bonus, and I could put on my resume, I'm a World Series winner, but he didn't contribute. So that would probably irk him more. He'll be happy in the moment. So as a former Major League player and a guy who's very competitive, and I'm competitive too for different reasons, I find it incredible that Met fans would rather see a team like the Phillies win. Met fans and Philly fans do not get along. They never will. Over Scherzer winning another World Series and deGrom getting a World Series right after he left the Mets.
Yeah, well, as a former player and a fan, I think my fandom is a little bit different than your average fan.
And that's why we ask you.
Yeah. I like I said last podcast, I'm able to separate my fandom when it comes down to these types of situations and just try to enjoy the game for what it is. Once your team's eliminated, I don't think that you should particularly care one way or the other who wins, As for Scherzer and deGrom, I know that things ended a little not so great with Max leaving, but while Max was on that mound as a Met, and while Jake was on that mound as a Met, nobody gave more of an effort than either one of those guys.
Correct.
So you can't begrudge a guy, whether it's success, non-success, whatever it may be. It's not like they were out there lollygagging or half-assing what they were doing. And obviously Jake is had one of the best runs in the history of the game as a Met, and we need to appreciate that for what it is. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I don't think that if Jake gets a ring with the Rangers, I don't think that ring sees the light of day. It's not like he's going to be wearing that. And I do definitely believe it's going to make him more hungry to come back and try to get one while he is an integral part. I'm sure it's going to eat at him, because it's been 2011 was the last time the Rangers were in there. So that's, you never know when you're going to get a chance to get back. But one thing real quick about the Rangers, they've spent the money, they've got the players, they've got the horses, and they've got a great manager. So none of this is surprising, even though it's a team that lost 104 games, whatever it was, just a few years ago. They've completely turned around that organization. And you got to give Chris Young a lot of credit, and you got to give the owner a lot of credit for spending the money. And they're right there.
I'm glad you brought up the manager, Bruce Bochy. First ballot Hall of Famer, regardless, with all the rings that he won with the Giants. This is just going to help his resume. He's already going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's amazing what a manager can do, and help lead a team and just help turn around the culture of the team, because Bruce Bochy, he did it. You can't take that away from him. And, he's a former Met, by the way. Not many people know that. I think it's a good trivia question or a yes or no question. He played like 18 games in 1982 or 3 for the Mets. So former Met, Bruce Bochy. But
there you go. Even more of a reason for people to get upset. No.
Right. Oh, I don't want the Rangers to win a World Series because former Met, Bruce 18, Bochy, right? Who 18 total fucking games, so. Right. We'll see what happens in the World Series. We'll keep it here in the MLB playoffs. So we don't know whether the Phillies or the Diamondbacks will win Game 7. But let's pretend either or do. I got to give credit to the Diamondbacks for just making it a Game 7 and winning Game 6. Tommy Pham had a home run. Going into that ballpark at Citizens Bank Ballpark is a very big, difficult thing to do with that raucous crowd. We don't know how Game 7 is going to go. It's either going to be Rangers, Phillies, Rangers, Diamondbacks. Rangers Friday will have home field advantage in Game 1. So, with that being said, not knowing at this moment, and when people hear this, we'll know, who do you like? And, we'll find out tonight who wins. And everyone hearing this obviously could either laugh at us or, again, guys, the game hasn't been played when we're airing this. But obviously, Phillies at home. And they got Ranger Suarez on the mound against Faft, I believe, who they're both pitching well in the postseason.
Yeah, they both pitch well, yes.
Who would you give the edge to in Game 7? And I know you don't have to predict it if you don't want, but let's make it another branch of that. Who would give the Rangers the tougher time in the World Series, as we know the Rangers are there?
I mean, you can't put anything past the D-backs at this point, but I would think with the experience and the little bit of pistivity that the Phillies have from last year, I would think the Phillies might give them a better match. But like I said, you can't put anything past the D-backs right now because I thought they would have been done and dusted a long time ago. And they've shown nothing but resiliency. And now they have went in and won a game in with that raucous crowd that's only ramped it up to a whole nother level here in the playoffs. So I think anything can happen in the game in the final game in Game 7, and I think it's all up for grabs in the World Series. I don't think that there's a favorite. I think that the Rangers got exactly what they needed with a little bit of a punch in the mouth to remember that baseball was hard, and they've reacted tremendously. Garcia is just off the charts right now, hitting home run after home run, and I think anything can happen. Let's see what happens tonight. I said Phillies from the very beginning, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with my guns right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way around. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm happy you mentioned Garcia, Adolis Garcia, who won the MVP for the ALCS. I was having this conversation with a friend. There's something about the Cuban players that have that swag to them that a lot of other players, not that other players don't have swag, but they have a different kind of swag. Tell me if you agree with this, because I could just ramble off a couple players, and you'll know that they have that different type of swag. Randy Arozarena, Yordan Alvarez, Yoenis Cespedes, and then Adolis Garcia. These guys have that swag that just brings another element to your team where they just don't give a shit. And I get it. Imagine growing up in Cuba, and then playing in the major leagues and being good. Like, it's hard enough just to get here. So, like, I wish they don't grow on trees. I love saying that expression, as I always said about Pete Alonso. Do you agree with that? I would love it if the Mets could get somebody like that, but they don't grow on trees. The Mets had it in Yoenis Cespedes, and they rode at that for a year and a half in 2015 and 16, if you will. And then, whatever he did, we won't go into that. But is there something about Cuban players or a different type of swag that you see with that? Because I see it right off, the eye test shows me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I'm gonna show my old curmudgeonness now about I blame Cespedes for everybody having different colored spikes, this, that, and the other thing that is now prevalent in Major League Baseball. Obviously, the Cuban players do have a different kind of strut swag to them. They like to show what they've got and don't care what anybody thinks. I played with some Cuban guys, and all of them are a little bit different. And I also heard some of the horror stories of growing up in Cuba
Yeah.
and how rough that they had it. And you can look at some of the Cuban players that have come over here to the States and have had big flash right away and then kind of went away. I think sometimes when you grow up with having absolutely nothing and the
Right.
government telling you can't have anything, sometimes it can go to your head a little bit when you get a little bit of money and a little bit of fame and you kind of flash out, and then other ones become big time stars for years and years and years. But they definitely do carry themselves with the swag, like you said, sometimes a little bit too much. I think that what happened the other day, there's celebration and there's that, but I think that I don't even think it was the walking down halfway to home to first base and flipping the bat. I really believe it was the college bullshit stomping on home plate that pissed everybody off. We don't know whether it was on purpose or not. I don't know if it was necessarily him getting hit on purpose by team or just Abreu, the other pitcher, just took it upon himself that he didn't like it. But Cuban players definitely carry themselves a little bit different than your average white guy, if you want to say that's
Yeah.
But exciting player. He's on fire. I didn't particularly care for all the shenanigans, but as you saw, but shoot, it must be 2 or 3 home runs again. Now the first home run he hit right after he got plunked and they got into it. He took it a little bit differently. He walked and then he just threw the bat down and then took his little trip around the bases and stepped on the plate. So
And he never stopped hitting home runs.
it's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah. He never stopped. It was like they booed him in Minute Maid Park, and look what he did.
Yeah, he got the last laugh. He got the last laugh for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cespedes, I agree with you. He changed the landscape of a lot of different things because he was really the first Cuban player. And you did mention players from Cuba that didn't pan out, and the first person that it panned out for him because he got paid a lot of freaking money. Yasiel Puig, if you remember that name. He with the Dodgers had a good couple of years to start his career and then filtered out.
Part of me wonders like now if it's like a thing that you have to keep up, as a Cuban player, because I'm sure if you're in Cuba, you're following the guys that are in the league, and you gotta have your style, you gotta do your thing, Part of me wonders that, but whatever, to each his own. I'm not one to to pick on people for whatever they do. Everybody does their own thing. You can like it, you can dislike it.
Yeah. Now, we talked about swag, and this is a different type of swag. And I had this conversation with the same friend. In the news again today, and this is not going anywhere, Met fans, Ohtani. The Mets are going to be front and center, and it's made its way back into the headlines today. You have the richest owner in sports, you have the biggest market in sports in New York, and you have arguably the biggest name in sports, at least the biggest name in baseball for sure, Ohtani. You're going to hear all the rumors about how the Mets are going to be involved, and they will be. He's the biggest name, and Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, loves, shiny, big objects, whether they're art or they're his huge fish tank or probably the 30. He has. I'm sure he has
a shark in his house. I believe.
Yeah, he's got a shark tank that's bigger than both of our homes combined. I'm sure. That's what almost $19 billion will do. Good for him. But Ohtani, he's a different type of swag. He's not gonna throw the bat down. He's not gonna show up anybody. But he's got that aura about him. Obviously, when you have that, he's not going to pitch in 2024. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot because these rumors are not going to go away until he signs with somebody. I know how you feel about Ohtani. We've talked about it, how you would love if the Mets could sign him. But, obviously it changed a little bit with him having surgery for his arm and he won't be pitching in 2024. But are you ready to pay $50 million for a DH if that's what it comes down to?
Well, look, DH, I know the Mets don't know this, but because of who the DH has been the last couple of years, but DH is actually a pretty important position. So if you're going to get one of the better players in the league, knowing that in the future he's going to be able to help you out on the mound as well, I don't see why you wouldn't want that. I mean, he's obviously he's proven that he's an upper echelon elite hitter as well as a pitcher. So it's not like you're rolling the dice on a guy that's a pitcher that, okay, he might be able to hit a little bit. No, this guy can flat out hit. And I think it's bottom line. It's going to come down to whether he wants to play in New York or not. I don't think the money's going to be an issue. I think it's just going to really come down to whether he wants to be a Met. And we can be hopeful, and I'm hopeful. And I don't know his personality. I know that I question Trout and his personality because he had his opportunity to come back east and play, and he chose not to. And he chose also not to play in October ever. So
it's true, though. I laugh, but it's unfortunately true.
And unfortunately, we miss out, and a lot of the country misses out on those types of players playing in anonymity. And I hope that Shohei is not one of them, and I hope that he wants to bring it to the big stage. And let's try to make the Mets the organization that everybody wants, and let's get that World Series here.
Well, two things. You hit the nail on the head right there. The rumor, the article today, I believe it was Jeff Passan, who's a very big name for ESPN. It comes down to, and nobody knows this besides Ohtani, his family, his agent, whether he wants to play on the East Coast. Mets are going to match, I believe, any offer just because of what he can bring and what they probably think he's worth.
They can make the money in jerseys. You're going to make the money in jerseys anyway.
Exactly. So it just comes down to, does he want to stay on the West Coast, play for LA, play for whoever? He's not staying with the Angels, and we'll see what happens. But the rumors are not gonna go away. No. He's going to be part of the Mets talk until he's with another team or with the Mets. And then the last thing, I rather have Juan Soto, who's a free agent after 2024. He's going to garner over $400 million. He turned down $400 million from the Nationals. He hasn't stopped hitting or walking, and his on-base percentage is insane for his career. He's 24, turning 25. He's accomplished more than most people have in their career already, and he's 24. If it meant, and this is my own personal decision, and I'd like to know what you think, if I could have one of the two, and if it means if I sign Ohtani, I can't have Soto, and vice versa, I'm going Soto. I know Ohtani's still young, and I know he's a unicorn, but that risk and reward is so high with Ohtani and Soto. And just, guys, if you're listening or watching, Google Soto stats, Baseball Reference, or wherever, Wikipedia, and look at Soto's stats. He started at 19. It's an incredible career already. He's 24. I'd rather have Soto. What do you think?
I think you got a great point there. Obviously, age-wise and future years-wise and health-wise up to this point, Soto is uncomparable. The only thing you worry about with him a little bit maybe is a little bit of a burnout, because he's been doing it for so long. Maybe he ends up burning out there towards the end when he's been around playing for 15, 20 years. I don't know him personally. I know that I don't particularly care for a lot of the players in San Diego. I don't think Bob Melvin did either. I think that's
gone.
Why he's got a new job. I don't know Juan Soto. I think he's a tremendous baseball player. Hopefully he can keep it professional. I don't know the guy. But obviously at 24 years old for another 10 years, at 34, he's still probably going to be a pretty damn good player. And as an outfielder, not a middle infielder, let's say like Lindor, who's going to get a little bit older as his contract goes on. Yeah. And with DH still being a possibility, I think that would be a tremendous acquisition for the Mets as well if they could pull it off.
It's amazing how, I know ownership with Steve Cohen started 3 years ago as we go into year 4, but just to be a Met fan and with the Wilpons who, were coupon shopping, if you will, for so long, it's amazing as a Met fan as I sit here and I just take a step back. Who would I rather have?
We want everybody. Give me them all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like giving me a credit card with unlimited credit balance and go shopping, Casey. As a Met fan for decades, it's unheard of and it's a good feeling. Now it doesn't translate to winning, right, but it's a good feeling.
Like, if they don't have a big off season and sign some of these names that we're talking about, with the expectations now because of the money, you're going to go into a season with the letdown already, where people are going to be felt let down that you didn't get these huge names. So let's hope that they can score some of them. So and the Yamamoto over there would be nice too. But now we're talking about we want all of the top guys.
And he's going to Yamamoto would probably get over $200 million. He's 24 years of age as well. So being a Met fan, I'm not saying we're greedy or anything, and I don't take this for granted. We paid our dues, with the lineups and the rotations that we saw, lately, and it's just a different feeling. Let's move on. I came up with this, and I wanted to get your take. I asked this on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, guys. Shay_hello, and you probably have saw this. If not, hit that follow button. Mets traded away a bunch of guys, as we know, at the deadline. Now, I'll just go like no Scherzer, no Verlander. They're staying put in Texas and Houston, respectively. But the guys that are free agents, I want to know who out of these guys you would want the most. I'm just going to read the names for everyone listening or watching. David Robertson, Tommy Pham, Mark Hanna, who has a team option. Brewers have that option, $9.5 million. With a $2 million buyout. So it's $11.5 million, really, but $2 million on all that. Eduardo Escobar or Dom Leone. I have to throw them in there. They were traded away and they're free agents. Out of those guys, not saying any of them, you could say zero. Out of those guys I just named, who would you want the Mets and would fit well in 2024 to come back?
I think after what we've seen about what Pham had to say about the position players on that team, that ain't happening. Regardless, it didn't matter if he hit 700 or not. He's not coming back to be a Met.
Right. I agree.
Robertson, obviously he's still serviceable. He's, as we've seen with Max, you can get old fast. You can go from being good to being not so good really, really quick. But obviously, I think that he's still got something left in the tank, and I would take him back.
I totally agree. Tommy Pham, I thought, was 50-50 coming back after he was traded, but after he kind of threw the Mets under the bus and the players.
I hope they took that as a wake-up call, to be honest with you. We talked about the whole BP thing and the nobody going out to warm up. I hope they take it as a wake-up call. I think Buck had to take it as a wake-up call because he gone.
Yeah, and
the general manager, he gone.
Yeah, look what happened.
Probably whoever the people were telling them they need to rest before the game, they're probably going to be gone too.
And there's a lot of guys who are gone too, were in the front office. I
think you're going to see batting practice, and I think you're going to see people warming up on the field again.
I'll tell you what, if Craig Counsell's a manager, I would agree with you. And he is the front runner. Obviously, Mets can't talk to him to the 31st because the Brewers and their owner is a piece of shit. Don't mind me.
But I'll take Robertson back. I'll put him in the bullpen again. Absolutely.
Robertson, I agree with you. Out of everyone I just named, David Robertson, did he pitch well for Miami? No. Did it make any sense? No, because he had a great year at the Mets, but he wasn't supposed to be the closer for the Mets.
He didn't want to leave, and I'm sure he was in shock and probably
he was hard. Yeah, and that, as we know, if we look back, was the beginning of all the chain of events that went down. Robertson traded 5 days before the deadline. Max goes to Cohen. What the hell? A day later, Max is traded to the Rangers. Verlander. What the hell? Verlander a day later.
Those guys weren't ready to quit. They weren't ready to quit.
Yeah.
No, they weren't ready. And as players, as long as you got a chance, you feel like you got a chance, you want to fight for that chance.
Yeah. So I'll agree with you. Actually, I do want Robertson back. Regardless if I just don't have to pick one or if I do. He was going to be our eighth inning man in 2023. Hopefully Diaz is ready to go, which I believe he is, and he has a good offseason, and that knee's good. And, bring him back on the same deal that you did last year, which was, I believe, 1 year, like $10 million. Bring him back, eighth inning man, pressures off out of Vino, to be that eighth inning man, and, go from there. I got a fun one for you, Bill.
All right.
I love these types of questions. Mount Rushmore. Now, we all know that there's 4. I'm going to go with the category of the Mount Rushmore for this one of, in your opinion, Mets, most underrated Mets in history on that Mount Rushmore. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna cheat just a little bit because we did have our notes earlier, and I think you hit it right on the head. To be honest with you, I sat and thought about it, and I couldn't come up with anybody any better than what you came up with. And obviously,
you're just gonna take mine because I told you who I picked.
What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
Okay.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
You picked the 4 best guys, and those are the guys. Olerud.
Yep.
You got Edgardo Alfonso. Rick Reed, the poor man's Greg Maddux,
Yep.
and then the kid, Gary Carter. These are guys that
Yeah.
were tremendous players. Some of them were all-stars. I think all of them were actually. Didn't Rick Reed made an all-star team, right?
Yes, he did.
So all of them were all-stars as Mets. None of them Hall of Famers. Actually, one of them is a Hall of Famer. One of them doesn't have his number retired yet, but he might get there. But I have to agree with you. I mean, I don't think there's, I couldn't come up with anybody else, to be honest with you.
I thought long and hard. I mean, easy for me with really three. John Olerud, in my mind, is number one. He wasn't here long in New York, but look at the numbers, look at his defense, look at the clutch hits, and all that. Rick Reed, he's so underrated. Just watching him every start, and I know you knew him, just like you said, a poor man's Greg Maddux. He was fun to watch. He just was, and he put up his numbers, quality starts, relied on him. I believe he won the only World Series game in 2000 against the Yankees, which was Game 3 at Shea Stadium. And Edgardo Alfonso, all-star, well-known Met, but still underrated. Without Edgardo Alfonso, Mike Piazza doesn't have the career that he does in New York. It was the silence of how clutch Fonzie, in my opinion, was.
Fonzie is one of the best players I ever played with, and I had the luck, the opportunity to play with him from short season A ball, from actually extended spring training, all the way through to the major leagues. And he's one of my favorite players of all time. And I think I might have even said this to you before. I learned a lot of Spanish from.
You did not? No.
From sitting on the bus. We would sit on the bus ride, and I would help him with English, and he would help me learn Spanish. So that's my heart right there. I love that guy, and he's one of my favorite ball players of all time.
Same here. Never played with him, never was on a bus with him, and just was watching him as a fan and as a little, as a teenager. The fourth guy on the Mount Rushmore was a little hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
Because Gary Carter is a Hall of Famer. Gary Carter is, a Hall of Famer. I could just stop there. That's all you need to know. But I do think he was underrated as a Met. And I could go no further.
I don't think it was so much as a player. I think it was what he meant to everybody on that 86 team, because he was kind of like, and after, knowing Doc Gooden and spending some time with Doc Gooden and talking about Gary Carter and what he meant to him and what he meant to that ball club, I think that obviously Keith Hernandez was thought about as a captain on that team. But I think when it came down to you need to talk to somebody, you need some advice, I think that Kid was the guy.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. Gary Carter, 86, and what he did in that series with all the pressure, and the Mets needed someone and something, and he was always there. Other than, Lenny Dykstra in Game 3, starting it all off, Gary all series long. And just like you said, the leadership and someone you needed to talk to. He didn't have that C on his chest like Keith Hernandez, so you can't call Keith underrated.
Absolutely not.
Right. But Gary, I just think, was underrated, regardless of he's got a plaque in Cooperstown. I just think he was. But it's tough, for that fourth one. But I stand by the first three, and I'm happy you agree.
I do.
I
think you nailed it.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take the compliment. And before we move on to the mailbag, because we got some questions to get to, we were talking about Rick Reed and Fonzie, the late '90s Mets. Al Leiter turned 58 years young on Monday. And I was looking at his numbers. Say hello on our. We didn't do a newsletter on Al and his birthday. We did some other types of happy birthday things. But I should say Al Leiter, he was underrated. Looking at his numbers. Now, I wanted to ask you, do you have any memories from Al? Because, you played around the same time. Al, let's just let everyone watching on Say Hello Media on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcast. 95 wins in 7 years, 213 starts, an all-star appearance. He pitched that play-in game against the Reds in Cincinnati, if you remember. Edgardo hit that big home run. I believe Ricky Henderson as well. He had a great career for the Mets, and he played for a lot of different teams, but his wins and his accomplishments really with the Mets overshadowed. So did you play with him? Your thoughts on Al Leiter? I loved him. And his grunts on the mound, his tenacity, what do you think? What did you think of Al?
Well, I did play with Al, and I actually had an opportunity to meet Al Leiter prior to playing with him when he was a Marlin, and getting to when I was rehabbing from Tommy John, Hundley introduced me to him, so we got to talk as left-handed pitchers. And I just remember watching him throwing 97, 98 miles an hour before they were measuring the ball out of the pitcher's hand, and they were measuring the ball at home plate. So you can only imagine what that was, in today's gun. I'm sure he would have been throwing 100, 101 miles an hour when he was a Marlin. He was just filthy, loved his competitiveness. Kind of likened to myself, my approach to pitching a little bit to
lefty.
Him,
yeah, you're both lefties.
A little bit of your hair on fire, a little bit, very competitive, fiery guy. He had a lot of advice for me when we did play together that I probably wasn't ready to listen to at the time, being still young and dumb, I would say.
Yep.
But and then as a Met, he actually kind of transformed himself into that flame-throwing, cutting the fastball all the time.
Yeah.
So if you think back to the end of his career with the Mets, he was, a 90, 91, 92 mile an hour guy.
But he had that cutter.
That, and then he learned how to throw a sinker, which I specifically remember in spring training, him and Dennis Cook and playing catch, and them going over what Dennis Cook thought about how he threw his two-seamer, and Al trying to play catch and getting so frustrated that he couldn't figure it out. And then you got to see him kind of develop a pitch that was actually going the opposite direction, going to the left as opposed to the right. And bottom line, Al Leiter, great pitcher, great professional, consummate competitor. And he was. I wish I would have listened a little bit better to him when I was younger.
Yeah. I love how you brought Dennis Cook into the podcast. Is it something about lefties that you guys just had a bond? Because Dennis Cook, another lefty.
There's a small few of us in culture, let alone in
life,
just
population.
Baseball. So we try to stick. I do another little thing with another group of three other guys that are former left-handed pitchers.
The lefties,
right? Southpaw, right? So it's a brotherhood within a brotherhood for sure.
I have nothing bad to say about Al. Like you said, his tenacity, his
fiery.
Yeah, you can't teach that. That's just with you. Yep. So, happy birthday, Al, and thank you for the memories. 7 years with the Mets. Let's get into the mailbag. We got some questions for Bill Pulsifer. Once again, follow us on Shay_hello on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, or Shay Hello, formerly known as Twitter. And Shay Hello Pod is our podcast Twitter name as well. You can always, we always come out before our podcast where we ask you to ask if you have any questions for Mr. Pulsifer. This week we got some questions. Let's get to a couple of them. Your boy, we're going to start with him first. JK, NYMGI. He is back. We know you're his favorite, and he's your favorite.
And I appreciate him.
And he appreciates you. His question for this week: what is your favorite piece of memorabilia you kept from your playing career?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to be honest with you. It's something it's not even from the major leagues. It's actually from the minor leagues, and it's from my last start in organized baseball, which was in 2005. I was in Memphis. I was in St. Louis, but then I ended up playing the majority of the year in Memphis. And my last start in organized baseball, now granted, this was 2005, and I went on to play until 2011, overseas, independent baseball, what have you, winter ball. The glove that I wore in that game, because I actually struck out my career high as a professional, 15 strikeouts in my last game in organized baseball when I was being told that you're no longer good enough to play for one of the organizations. Right. So that's something that I hold dear to myself, because I'll remember that the last game that I ever played in organized baseball, I set my career high in strikeouts. And I believe it still might be the strikeout record at AutoZone Park, if it's still called AutoZone Park in Memphis. But yeah, that glove, that's my favorite thing.
That's a great story. I mean, was that a big FU to
kind of,
like
sort
you
of.
had the extra adrenaline you might have had, that 15 strikeouts in any level, I don't care where you are, is a big deal. There's 27 outs,
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was. You kind of knew this was going to be the end, and I just it was a special night. I think I went 8 2/3, so I actually because I was at like 130 pitches or something.
Oof.
And the manager came to take me out, so I got to get the little ovation from the crowd as well, as opposed to just the team celebrating, celebrating a win. So, yep, that glove, little Louisville Slugger, little black Louisville Slugger glove.
Great. That's a great story. Great question. So thanks for the question, NYMGI. And great answer. Didn't know it was going to go there. We got another question from Jimmy Langs. He goes, happy belated birthday, Bill, as you celebrated the big 5-0 a couple weeks ago. He wants to know, when you guys went out on the road, was it the player who made the most money that usually paid for the round of drinks that night?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You go out with the veterans and that, and if you're a younger guy, you're really not paying for anything. You know, I had a good group of veteran guys when I first came up. Obviously, when you go out and it's more, you know, as you get a little bit older and you become more of a veteran guy, it kind of gets, the bill kind of gets shared. But I had guys like Brett Saberhagen and John Franco and Bobby Bonilla and guys like that when I first came up that I wasn't paying for anything.
Yeah, no, I that's usually, I thought that would be the way to go, just being the minors as a broadcaster. You know, I was with the Ducks for a couple years. Sidney Ponson was on the team, and he liked to drink, and no one paid for a beer. It was all on him.
Yep.
And Gary was our manager. Gary didn't drink, and if he did, it was always a little Coors Light, you know, for Gary. Good question. Thank you, Jimmy. We got another question from Maria MB18. Bill, how would you structure the 2024 New York Mets starting rotation?
Well, I think as of right now, there's only two that we can completely pencil in. I think we talked about this last week with Quintana. Obviously, Senga's probably going to be starting opening day. Quintana right behind him.
As of now,
yeah. We've got obviously we've got the other guys. I think that there's going to be some fill in the blanks, possibly a little bit, that aren't in the organization right now. If we go with just what we have right now, I would say then you're looking at Lucchesi, Peterson, and McGill. I mean those.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody quite ready yet to step into the big league staff in the minor leagues. I think that might be a question coming up, to be honest with you. But
it is. We're
you know what? I'm going to draw a blank on that. I'm going to draw a blank on that because I looked it up, but you're going to have to answer that, to be honest with you. You're going to know more than me.
Maria, it's a good question. So, like Bill said, we can only pencil in two players right now.
I'm talking about the minor league guys that's coming up.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that question. It's actually next. But to answer Maria's question, Mets are going to sign a couple guys, whether it's Yamamoto, Jordan Montgomery, Aaron Nola. There's a bunch of free agents. They could trade for Corbin Burns. You know,
we're going to sign everybody this offseason, apparently. We're going to get every single free agent that's worth a shit out there, apparently.
Bill's going to come out of retirement. I'm going to start throwing my bullpens beginning after we record this. And Maria, you're going to be on the mound as well. So we're signing everybody.
Yeah. I think it's way early to know that right now. You know, we don't even have a manager or general manager yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's two starting pitchers as of now, right as we sit here.
We'll go with this. Maria, stay tuned.
Yeah.
That's all we can tell you.
I agree.
Now, the next question, as you alluded to, it's from Theo A., and he wants to know what is or who is the best pitching option or who are the best pitching options for the minors. And as you said, you needed a little help.
I did a little research, but now I'm drawing blanks, so you're gonna have to help me out. Be my backup here.
I could just go with, there's not many of them. A Christian Scott, a Mike Vassell, AA, AAA, Vassell in AAA. He's probably the closest. And then their number, the second rounder in 2022, Blake Tidwell from University of Tennessee, who probably is the number one pitching prospect in the minors. He's not close. He's young. He's got, I believe he was at the end of the year in AA. Their pitching in the minors is a little suspect. They don't have a lot, but that they're building it up. Like a Tidwell, Mike Vassell and Christian Scott. We saw some guys that have we could see some good things from them. But to be honest with you, they're a little top heavy, which is a good thing because they weren't before the deadline on the position players in the minors. Pitching, not so much. So if I had to give three names, it would be those three. So thank you for the question, Theo. We'll go with one more question. James Martin. He goes, And I like how he calls you Mr. Pulsifer. Hey, Mr.
Because I'm
Pulsifer.
50 now. I'm a Mister.
Oh, so at 49, you're
Bill.
You're Bill. Now
No
you're
Pulse.
Mr.
Yeah.
Got it. Pulse Bill at 49, and at 50, Mr. Pulsifer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. James Martin wants to know, and he goes, "Hey, Mr. Pulsifer, how was it, and how did it affect your career not pitching in 1996?"
Well, I think that it was huge, and not so much the missing of the pitching, more the what happened after I came back, because it was I had everything had just kind of happened exactly how I wanted things to happen in my life prior to that. I was going to do this by this age, this by this age. I was in the big leagues by 21. Was successful coming out of the gates as a major league starting pitcher, and then I got injured. And like I said, I don't think it was the not pitching in 96, because missing a year at that age I don't think is a huge deal. I think it was what happened with me mentally when I came back. Something just kind of changed. I don't know what it was. Obviously, it was an anxiety and depression issue that I had that didn't really rear its ugly head until after I had missed that year and came back. But I think it altered my career tremendously. Tremendously. I think that when people say, "Oh, if there's one person you'd like to see that they didn't get injured and what would have happened with their career," if anybody ever asks me that, I always start with myself. 100%. I would love to have seen what I would have been able to do without getting injured, and without the Yankees starting to win the World Series every year and the Mets deciding that they weren't going to try to develop young pitchers anymore.
Yeah, and
I didn't lose my mind. That would have helped too.
Definitely need your mind, especially as a pitcher,
yes.
In the big league. So that's going to end the mailbag. Thank you for all the questions. Every week, we do have the mailbag where you can ask Mr. Pulsifer, any question under the sun. If you have any for me, sure, but who cares? Anyway, let's go into quick pitches, and we're going to go rapid fast. For Bill, 3 questions. He doesn't know what's coming. These are always fun. Ready, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Or Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes. Get it right.
Which animal would be the nicest if they could talk?
Dogs.
English. Dogs?
Dogs can't speak English, or if they could.
Well, I was saying, like, hypothetically, if the words would come out of English or whatever country, Spanish in Puerto Rico, etc.
I think as man's best friend, it's got to be a dog. I would think dogs would be the nicest, I mean, I know I love my dogs, and they're the nicest to me. I wish they could talk. I think sometimes they look at me like they want to talk, so I would say a dog.
Definitely I'm a dog lover. I have Shay, obviously. I agree. Dogs. And we know as dog lovers, they do talk to us with their eyes, their actions. They talk to us. Yeah. I'm just saying, if they could verbally talk to us.
Cats would be telling you, "Screw you." Dogs would be telling you how much they love you and how hungry they are.
Dogs would say, "I'm hungry, feed me, or I got to go take a shit." And cats would say, "Get the hell out of here. Leave me alone."
Right.
And no offense to cat lovers, that it's just, you probably agree with us.
They just don't love me as much.
Exactly. Next one, as we continue the rapid fire of quick pitches. What is your most hated way of transportation?
I don't really like flying. I mean, obviously,
wow.
I had to do it for a long time. I just feel like, man, if it ever does go down, it's kind of pretty much it. So
that's it.
not a big fan of flying. I'll do it. Don't get on there fearfully, but I would rather not if I didn't have to.
Is it more of
Actually, you know what? I'm going to change that, and I've never done it, but I'm going to say cruise ship.
Wow.
I don't want to go on a cruise ship.
Okay. Now, I guess we could do this with any mode of transportation. That's the way I wanted to frame it. Mode of transportation, but it's because someone else is in charge and leading the driving of it, the plane.
I just think on either one of those, if something happens, man, you're screwed. You can get into a fender bender or riding your bike. You can fall off your bike, but if the plane falls out of the sky, we got problems.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. The last one, we're just going to keep it. I don't know why I did this, but transportation questions. In 2050, or let's screw it, 2050, 2075, what is, in your opinion, the fastest mode of transportation? Let's look into the future.
Teleportation.
You really think that's a possibility?
I think anything's a possibility.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
know. I mean,
That would be
Fastest
crazy.
mode, I think it's still going to be a plane, and I think that the plane, if we don't have teleportation, but I think the airplane's still going to be the fastest, unless we're going around on rocket ships from place to place.
I tried to make that's why I said 2050 and moved it to 2075. We won't be here for any of that, but uh, I was just trying, yeah. Electric cars, no one thought was going to happen. We all thought, like when Back to the Future came out in 1980, whatever it came out in, that hoverboards and flying cars, I should say. Well, that didn't happen. So, yeah, I'd probably say it's still planes, but the fact that we have electric cars, things obviously take time. It would probably be in 50 years, still planes.
I don't think you're going to
But
be driving around in anything at 500, 600, 700 miles an hour. You're still going to have to be up in the air and something.
yeah,
But I'm hoping for teleportation.
that would save a lot of time, and
I
that
don't
would
put
be
anything past. I don't put anything past. You never know, man. You never
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I don't know why I got stuck on the transportation questions, but we're just going with it.
You
So
feel like, I think you feel like you need to be on a trip somewhere. Maybe you got to take a little vacation.
yeah, it's been a 3 months, so I think that's where I'm going with.
Yeah.
That you might be onto something, but that's gonna do it for this episode of the Shay Low podcast. A lot of people to thank. I want to thank everybody watching and looking at our either mug faces, in your opinion, or our beautiful faces on our YouTube channel, which is at Shay Hello Media. If you're listening, whether it's Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, Shay Hello Podcast is what you type in. Thank you for listening. Also, thank you, Stephen White. Check out his website at roots-recordings.com, our producer. And of course, last but not least, I want to thank Mr. Pulsifer for another fun episode. Any parting words as we conclude this one and we get ready for some big baseball?
I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate the time, and thank you to everybody. I appreciate it, Casey.
Sounds good. So thanks for all the questions in the mailbag. Thanks, Stephen White. Thanks for everybody watching and listening. And that was, with, again, pleasure, episode number 12. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Shay Low Podcast.